there is one fundamental issue with a little bit more about the tuning software's final tuning.
But it won't mean anything at all.
So inside the Ferrari FF, gorgeous interior, loving the carbon and the spec of this car, looks absolutely phenomenal. However, there is one fundamental issue with the car. The reason why it's with us today and why you're watching today's video. The current Ferrari FF sound system is a little bit more than disappointing. Let me go through a little bit more about this. So we're going to play a couple of tracks and just have a listen to it. So that's volume 20, which is halfway. So the volume actually isn't too bad. Like BMWs, they're really, really quiet, this kind of half volume, but this isn't too bad volume wise.
You could say anything, but it could mean
There's your problem.
everything, 'cause you said it to the right person and they needed the compliment. But isn't it sickening? You can say you're in love with them, but it won't mean anything at all. But that's not your fault. Life's funny like that. You lose one thing, get another one back.
So if you've watched previous videos on our channel, you would have heard these songs in systems where we've done after, and you will hear it later. But there's a couple of key issues there. One thing which is actually quite promising from the factory system, which you don't see very often, is actually the volume. So the volume isn't too bad, and that was on half. It was nice. It didn't sound distorted. It sounded actually okay for that kind of volume spectrum. So that is a sign that the system has an amplifier in it. The problems in this system is a couple of things. First of all, that lower frequencies. There is lower frequencies in the door cards. The speakers and the mid basses in the doors, they're performing okay, and I believe there is a factory sub in this vehicle as well. So the lows aren't too bad, but like, it's not moving you. It's not. You can't feel it. You can't. It doesn't kind of grab you, if that makes sense. So that's kind of the bigger problem with the bass. In terms of the clarity, the definition. So you've got a mid-range on top of the dashboard, so we will be fully removing the dashboard on this car. Yes, we've done it before, and we've done it lots of times on lots of supercars. It's very normal practice for us, but the whole dashboard will be removed to upgrade those 3 inches properly. Then we're doing a stock look for the rest of the system, other than the custom sub box that we're going to be adding, and that is going to give you that depth. But the soundstage at the front, you're going to add that definition of sound, because you've got far, far better components than what's in here. And in sound off, you'll actually be able to see that side-by-side comparison of what you've got now to what we're actually going to be putting in. Right, let's play something else, just give you an idea of another track. So we'll play at the same volume, that volume 20. So this song is actually a lot quieter. So that's very quiet. And that's on actually the same volume, volume 20. I think that's enough of that. Let's get on to upgrading. that is the install complete. I now want to run you through a little bit more about the tuning software, so hence why I've got my laptop with me, and we're going to then be listening to the car so you guys can actually hear how good this car now sounds. A couple of things I just want to go through the spec of the system. So we've got a fully active three-way front end. So we've got a Horningsea Legend set in the front, a tweeter, a 3-inch mid, and a mid-bass driver in the bottom of the door. We've got the Hertz Center range in the rear, and then a Horningsea Pro 10-inch shallow mounted sub in the rear on the left quarter. Then we've got two amplifiers in the system, the new Forza 12 channel and the Forza 1D, the one channel monoblock to run the system. So we're running the system fully active, and I'll run you through on the software on the so you can see it live in front of you. This out of the new Forza range is something called the Audison Forza Bit Drive software. So as you can see on the screen, and we'll pop a little screen recording of this, it's shown up that it's already sensed and picked up from my USB cable that we've got the 12.14 Forza amplifier. So that's 12 channels of amplification, 14 channels of processing power. So what we've actually got on the screen here in front of us now is the configuration of the setup. We've got a three-way front end, so we've got a tweeter, a 3-inch mid, and a mid bass in the bottom of the door. Then we've got a 6.5-inch coaxial rear speaker, and we've got a 10-inch sub in the system. So I want to go through a little bit of an overview, obviously on the tuning side of things, what goes on, how we do it, and kind of what's involved in getting a car sounding amazing. There's a couple of key areas here. Firstly is this section over here. The section where you've got the car and number of speakers, that's all down to basically where you've got, and you set this up in the configuration wizard, what speakers you have in the car currently. So the new system basically takes inputs into an amplifier. So on this particular system, we've got the new Kenwood unit. We are running high level into an amplifier. Amplifier then corrects it all via the processor and then output to the new speakers. So part of this is the output channels, as you can see here. It tells us basically, and we've done this configuration already, we've told the software what speakers we're running. So we've got a tweeter, a 3-inch mid, a mid bass, a coaxial rear, and then a sub in the system. You've got a couple of different things within this software. You've got full overall sub level control, but that is also controlled via the head unit on this system. And then you've got master overall volume. You'll see here, so down at the bottom where you're talking about delay. So as you can see, it changes by each one I click on at the delay in this section here. The reason why that delay is taking place, and this is a big misconception about car audio. So when we're talking about car audio, when you're talking about moving sound around a vehicle, so if you've got the stock system, you might be used to using a balance and fader, and you move sound around the vehicle. So I'm sat inside the vehicle right now, and the way your current system works, if you've just got the stock system, is on a balance and fader. If I wanted the sound to move from where I am currently towards the back of the vehicle, what actually happens is your sound decreases volume in the front, increases volume at the back of the vehicle, giving you the illusion that sound has moved backwards. However, that is completely wrong. The way sound should be done, and the way Cambridge Car Audio do it, is do full time alignment. So on a system with a DSP, what it allows us to do is time alignment, which basically is moving the sound stage around the vehicle. We take full measurements from every speaker in the car. So for example, the left door here is further away than the right door. So the tweeter on the left side is further away than the right side. So what we actually do is we take measurements from each of those tweeters, land that at my driving position, at the listening position of where I'm sat right now. And what I actually do is, when I'm doing that time alignment, the software automatically allows for it, and it delays and increases the speed in which each speaker plays. So this one towards the left of me, which is further away, will play faster than this one, and this will play slower. However, sitting in the driver's seat, it lands at me at a perfect position. The other thing is no volume change. The speakers are playing at the same volume, which is absolutely incredible. And until you sit inside a vehicle and listen to it, seeing it on YouTube just won't cut it. Seeing it on socials just won't cut it. You have to sit inside a vehicle and experience the change in time alignment from a passenger side to a driver's side to a central. In our demo cars, we have the option and facility to be able to showcase that, because it's absolutely incredible. People that aren't even interested in sound, and when they sit in a car and listen to that, they can hear the difference. It is phenomenal, the difference of staging that makes when you're doing time alignment. So that is part of the DSP setup that we do. They're full time corrected. So every speaker, like this particular vehicle, we've gone for that OEM look. No real cosmetic change to all the front of the vehicle here. we're using stock locations. So they're not absolutely ideal. There's different levels, higher and lower, that we can do, but this is a really nice sounding solution. But we are using that OEM look. But obviously the mid-ranges, for example, they're pointing right up into the glass, which isn't ideal. So we use time alignment, we use correction and use a processor to correct those issues to create a nice sound inside the vehicle for what we've got going on. So on the actual software, that's a bit more about time alignment and the delay, and that's what that section is. Then we've got this section, which is the crossover. This is where we can set frequencies and filters. So I'm going to start from the top. We're going to run from a tweeter. So currently this is running at 4,000 hertz upwards. Then we've got the mid-range, which is running 450 hertz all the way to 4,000. So this is what's called high pass filters, which is basically whatever the frequency is. So we've set at 4,000. Upwards from there is what's playing. Then we've got what's called a band pass on the mid-range. What this is basically a section either side. So between 450 and 4,000 hertz is where that will play. Then we are doing another band pass. So we've got 60 hertz to 450 hertz for the mid bass. The rears, which are a coaxial, we're running 100 upwards. Then for the sub, we're running 70 and below, and that's called a low pass filter. So maybe at a later date, if you guys want to hear about it a little bit more, pop in the comments if you want me to do a whole video on the different filters, when to use them, when not to use them, and that might be quite a useful thing if you're tuning a car or want to just understand a little bit more about how we do our work. So that's a bit of the configuration over here. As you can see, as I change it over, you'll see the lines on the main graphic here, they do change over, and you've got different ways of seeing this. You've got a graphic EQ or a parametric. Personally, I prefer a parametric. Personal preference, it doesn't really make a difference. It's just what you're used to and what you learn to do the tuning on. But there's lots of different options, and sometimes on some systems I will use a graphic rather than parametric, but it just depends on the system. So then on this stage, we've got our inputs and then we've got our outputs. So on the input stage, we're running input of front left full, front right full, front left, rear left full, rear right full, subwoofer left and subwoofer right. And then on the output stage, we've got our front left, right, all the left, right aligned for your tweeters, mid-ranges, mid-bass, and all the speakers that we've got on the output stage. So as you can see here, we've got the configuration. You might be thinking, well, we're using a 12-channel amplifier, but you haven't got 12 speakers here. You've got 6 in the front and then 2 in the rear and then your sub. So the sub is powered from that 1-channel Forza, and the rest of the system is run from that 12-channel. So this shows you here on the output stage with the numbers. So you've got channel 1, 2, which is basically your tweeters. 3, 4 is actually on your mid-range. So we're bridging on the mid-ranges on top of the dashboard. 5, 6 is your right mid-range. Then over 7, 8 is your mid-bass in the bottom of the door, again bridged. Right mid-bass bridged again, and then the rears, because they're rear fill, we're just running off single channels as well. So we're using all 12 channels to run a fully active system when we're giving more power by bridging that amplifier to those speakers that are slightly more important and need that little bit more love and attention. The speakers on top of the dash are the mid-ranges, and the mid-basses are in the bottom of the door. They are very, very important bits of equipment in the car in terms of those speakers, and that's why we're bridging them. The tweeters themselves, they're quite close to you, so that's why we're not bridging them, and we're using the mid-range and mid-bass because that covers a massive, massive section of the frequency. So as you can see here, the mid-range and mid-bass, so that's what's being displayed on the large graphic here, that is actually being displayed, and that covers, as you can see, quite a large bandwidth from 20 hertz over to 20,000 hertz. So it's very important that obviously these all get set up so everything is safe and sounds correct. And then you've also got a little deep dive into this, which is the final tuning. So we've also got the ability to go into here and we can basically add in and we can set a frequency. So for example, if we want a little bit more fullness of sound, so we can click on here and it gives you a little guide at the top, but we can set section 2 and I can actually increase that like so, and I can change the number of hertz that I want it to increase. So say we want to go to 220, it moves over, and then I can actually address the Q as well of it, so which is basically the spectrum in which it expands around it. So again, this is a parametric. You have got graphic as well, but this is really nice because you can actually add certain elements to a track or certain elements to a car system that you just don't have access to otherwise. Obviously, you've got your EQ, which is all about being correct, and that will be tweaked a little bit more later on. But I just wanted to go through a little bit more about what's actually involved in the software. Obviously, there's a hell of a lot to go into there, and I could be here for 10, 20 minutes, half an hour, 40 minutes on talking about all the stuff that's involved in this software. There is so much inside it. The bigger the processor, the better the processor, the more you get. That's why they always sound better at bigger, higher spec systems, because there's more control that we get when we're doing a system. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more of an insight into the tuning, the software that's involved on the new Forza range. But that's enough of that for now. I want to go through and actually sit down with you and listen how the system sounds right now. It's just so different to how it was before.
You could say anything, but it could mean
it's got so much clarity, depth, and this isn't even with the final tune on.
But it's in a sickening. You can say you're in love with them, but it won't mean anything at all. But that's not your fault. Life's funny like that. You lose one thing, get another one back. You thought you knew, but it wasn't a fact. No, I'm your whole life, but it was all a net. There's no meaning, but like in the best of ways, you could go 100 days without really doing anything. You could say anything, but it could mean
There's your problem.
everything, 'cause you said it to the right person, and they needed the compliment. But it's in a sickening. You can say you're in love with them, but it won't mean anything at all. But that's not your fault. I see you struggle like butterflies in water. Can't keep moving forward. I see your shoulders weighted down by armor. You don't need that protection. I will walk on glass. I will run 10,000 miles and more. I will give my eyes. If you lost your sight, I will run you back.
And hopefully that's coming across well for you guys at home. I mean, this is even still, like, I've still got a lot more tuning to do on the car, but I wanted to show you at this stage because I could show you kind of that before stage of that initial setup's obviously been done, but kind of just walk you through without too much playing around on the EQ to show you how good it sounds even without. I mean, there's another level to this which we go through, so hopefully you guys have learned a little bit more today. I know in the last few videos we've had a couple of comments saying that you wanted to see a little bit more about the tuning side, so we're trying to give back as much as possible. So if you want to see anything further, maybe you want to see a video on a specific thing, just let us know in the comments below. And also, if you have enjoyed today's video, massively helps us out if you can smash that subscribe button. And thank you once again for staying right to the very end of today's video. You've seen an entire journey of a Ferrari FF. Gorgeous sound system in the vehicle. I'm so happy with the final results, and I'm sure our client will be as well. So thank you once again for watching. I'll see you on the next one.